Welcome back to our New Testament survey of the book of Matthew. Today we are in chapter 18, and I want to invite you to get a Bible. Join me in Matthew chapter 18. We're going to survey these 35 verses, and I want to begin the survey with verse 35 because I think it captures the entire chapter. So look with me in Matthew chapter 18 and verse 35. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespasses. And this verse captures a journey through three distinct areas in Matthew chapter 18. If you look at verses 1 through 14, Matthew chapter 18, verse 1 through 14, is Jesus teaching on the childlikeness of the kingdom. Who's greatest, the disciples ask. And of course, Jesus took a child and said, if you can become like this child, especially in offenses. Now, we're not saying offense. That's spelled with an S, and that means on the attack or on the go, on the forward position. But offenses are hurts, trauma, emotional, relational trauma that comes to life through words, through actions. And Jesus is teaching that there is a woe that is pronounced upon that person through whom offenses come. And so in verses 1 through 14 of Matthew chapter 18, that's what Jesus is teaching. I want to draw your attention to verse number 7 to give you the heart of this. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come. But woe to that man by whom the offenses cometh. And Jesus is using a great bit of analogy to get rid of that offense. Don't let offenses flow through us. But when we do get offended, then there must be a level of forgiveness that happens. And 1 through 14 talks about that. And then in verse 15 through verse 20, that's the second part of the chapter that I want to give special attention to. In this part, Jesus is now talking about the offenses, relational issues that come brother to brother, sister to sister. In the first part, it's about greatness, growing in greatness and discipleship would equal not becoming offended, or more importantly, not being a source of offense. But now Jesus is going to talk about when it does happen, brother to brother, sister to sister. And Jesus says this in verse number 15, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. So this teaching now is about people within the church. And Jesus goes on to teach that if the brother hears you, you've gained a brother. The relationship is repaired. Forgiveness has happened. But if that brother doesn't hear you, that sister doesn't hear you, just the two of you talking, then he says, don't leave it there. Go back and find 2 or 3 that will come to witness this attempt again to repair the issue. And 2 or 3 witnesses, that's what he's talking about. This is key because the complete context is wrapped up in verse 20, where Jesus says, Where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So now he's saying not only are two or three brothers or sisters witness to this, but if you're gathered there in my name trying to repair an issue, I am in the midst of that decision. And this puts a great deal of pressure upon both the offended and the offender to get things right. Forgiveness must flow. The third part of chapter 18 is verses 21 through 35. And in these verses, Jesus is going to talk about the law of forgiveness, is what we would call it. And Simon Peter's going to ask him, how often should we forgive? You're placing a great demand upon us, Jesus. How often? And he said, till 70 times 7. And wow, this kingdom law of forgiveness. And Jesus is going to use a parable, a saying that will depict this forgiveness and level of law of forgiveness in verses 21 through 35. And then again, I feel like 35 is a wrap up of the survey of the chapter. So as you approach this chapter, the personal application will be to search your heart. God, is there any offenses that are flowing through my behavior, my words, my lifestyle, action, choices, decisions? And then certainly don't be an offender. But if you get offended, notice in verse 15, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, you go tell your brother that you have your feelings hurt. And this is so important, that the offender, he can be clueless, he or she can be clueless that she's offended or he's offended you. It's the offender, the offended, that must take the step to get things going in the right direction. And so this is a beautiful chapter, law of forgiveness. Take a few minutes today as you survey this chapter, and also survey your heart with just like we did when we were looking at the chapter. Examine your heart. God, is there anything that I need to take care of and get it right with my brother or sister? And offenses will come. Just get them right quickly. Hope you enjoy your study of Matthew chapter 18. Go and have a wonderful day in Jesus' name.